license and registration, he can sense your aggravation.
On the head of the fallen angel.
When the world is muttering under the floorboards, stomp even louder.
Time.
Let them know you are alive today.
Or unhum.
Did you know that your hands came with a ripple effect?
Whisper tones unraveling like silk.
Blood, sweat, and tears win by any means poetry.
Sway, look at me. Is a piece of the pie too good for me?
Some may call it rock the mic. We call it poetry.
Hello, and welcome to Sojourn with Words. So very happy you decided to join us. I'm your host, Sistah Joy, and today we have a fabulous young poet who is going to let us know what's happening in her world of poetry and what's on the horizon going forward. I'm speaking of none other than Kya Amadi. And Kya is, well, she's a young woman with great things in store. Why don't we talk about, first of all, Sojourn with Words is very honored to receive Kya as our guest poet today. And Kya Amadi is a 17-year-old poet that is a fresh addition to the art scene. She began writing poetry at 11 years old and has now just recently started her official career as a poet, or as a writer, as a poet. So far, she has placed in the 2021 Dr. Jean Moset's Young Writers Contest. She's been a volunteer and a workshop leader in the AMP program at Genevieve N. Johnson Senior Day Care Center, and she's performed in the 2021 Pan and Poetry Showcase produced by CAFE, which is the Cultural Alliance for Excellence. Now, Kya can be, well, we'll talk about how to get in touch with Kya a little bit later, but first and foremost, welcome, Kya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. Now, Kya, you are, which year of high school are you now?
I'm a senior in high school now.
Okay, so this is your senior year. Do you see that poetry is going to factor in your academic studies going forward as you start to matriculate your college years? Or is this something that you're going to keep focused with regard to you personally, but not academically?
I think it'll definitely incorporate into my studies because I want to be an English professor personally. And I actually tell my friends, give me your essays. I want to edit. So I'll definitely find a way to make that a part of my career.
Okay. So you are a woman of words. Okay, very good. Now, with regard to, you say you came to poetry at a relatively young age of 11. What was it that brought you to poetry?
Well, as a young person, everyone's insecure. Everyone, they don't know who they are. So one day I was like, I'm gonna write down my feelings. And then I think I found like some random Instagram poet. I don't know, but I was like, I like the idea of putting stuff in stanzas. So basically, instead of writing Dear Diary, I would just it was like my diary, but in stanzas. And it wasn't good whatsoever. But,
that's subjective. We realize that is subjective now.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, now you're truly, your generation is about online social media as opposed to the literary, scholarly, library, academia of the past. How is it that you feel your writing has been influenced by the technology that brought you to poetry?
I hate to say, actually, Tumblr. I hate to, that's like the biggest thing that influenced me because you have all these anonymous poets who they don't really say their name. And you just have this big form of, if you put hashtag poet on Tumblr, like millions of things will come up. So that's definitely how I developed like my sense of how to work with words, just by reading other people. And like, I didn't even know who they were. I would just read them on the hashtags and everything.
So what is it that you're drawn to, subject-wise and stylistically?
I would definitely say more of a narrative, more of a conversational. And what am I drawn to? I would definitely say either, honestly, everything. I know it's a vague answer, but
Well, you're young. You can still be all over the place right now. That is tapping into those variety of voices that allow you to pick and choose. And at some point going forward, you will determine that this is more comfortable for you. This is more where you feel that your expression is allowed to blossom most fully. So that's a good thing at your age. It's not, you don't want to lock yourself in too soon because you have much to discover and you're still peeling the onion, as it is said.
definitely.
Okay. Now, with regard to, are there any classic poets that you are particularly have an affinity for, or that you have studied a bit, or just, these are poets that are meaningful to you?
I more focus on, I have a little notebook where I'm focusing on what specifically to study. So right now I'm getting into like I asked my English teacher for recommendations. I'm getting really into like Aristotle and like philosophy, and also like their I forgot what it was called, the long their
Sonnets?
plays. Yeah, their sonnets and the plays they would have. And yeah, so I'm kind of working from the bottom and trying to, take notes and see
And
how it
so the
goes.
Greek Aristotle, and I mean, you're going way back. You're not talking about American poetry, let alone African American poetry. You're truly talking about the Greek classics and getting that foundation. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's very wise. Certainly from that gives you a perfect springboard to go in many, many directions. So we look forward to seeing how that has played in the poetry that you will be sharing later today. Now, with regard to, there's a couple of things that you talk about, family and friends and your support system. Tell us about how is it that your family and friends have supported your literary growth?
Well, my mom was the first one who gave me my first little journal, and she didn't even think about poetry wise. She just said, "Oh, I got this from somewhere. It was for free. It's nice material. Here you go." But that ended up being like my Bible. Like I would carry it around everywhere I went, to school, to everywhere. So, and then from there on, it was like a tradition where she would get me, whenever I would fill up another book, she would get me another one. So definitely my mom, and definitely my friends, because I'm very vulnerable with my friends, and I'll read my stuff to them and they'll be like, "Kai, that's really good." And because poetry is vulnerable, so it's nice to be able to be open with people and be able to share that part of myself with them.
Okay. And so that's how you started writing, just literally a random gift from your mom. So it's interesting. Now, with regard to the subject matter, I understand that you have a particular affinity for writing on issues such as mental health for teens and mental wellness in general. Talk to me, how does a young person land on that platform?
I'll definitely have to say that writing about mental health, like it's kind of how I was saying, like venting in stanzas and just finding healthy ways to cope, even me going to therapy myself. And even when, therapists have lives, they are not speed dial, even being able to just write, even if it's not like a perfect work of art. So with mental young people, I think that everyone has their own outlet. So I know some people that draw, some people that dance, etc. But I know for most people, when you talk to them, writing stuff down has really, really helped.
Right. And certainly during this time of pandemic, how has that influenced your writing? Certainly many of us have stress issues and depression issues even, and there are many communities that are dedicating resources and time and effort to supporting that community. How has the pandemic affected your writing?
It has made me focus on the most subtle things. Like when I used to write, it used to be just me like venting about me being stressed. But then the pandemic has definitely made everyone slow down and appreciate things a lot more. So I find like I'll write down a random line about the rain and I never even thought about it before. Or like in a car, like you appreciate how the air flowing by the window smells differently. So it's definitely made me appreciate tiny details more. And I think that's been really helpful, making my writing have more meat to it, like have more details and everything.
Okay, okay. Well, you've already talked a little bit about your career hopes, that the college professor, the English professor. Talk about your writing process. I mean, you're a young woman who has a lot on your plate because you're in your senior year of high school, and that is no breeze of a time for any young person. But you have found and made time to fit in your writing. So with regard to your personal creativity, and I was fortunate to actually experience some live performance with you and saw the excellence that you bring even to the stage. And talk to us about your personal creativity and your writing process, realizing that that's a duality that doesn't necessarily have to be one and the same.
Well, my writing process, it's kind of like, it's very, very random. It's kind of what I mentioned before. My notes app on my phone is my savior. Because not everyone has something to write sometimes, like a thing to write with. So I'll be out somewhere and someone will say something a certain way that just hits different. And I'll be like, can you say that again real quick? Like, I just need to write that down. So I take a lot of inspiration from just the randomest things, like how someone says a sentence or etc., or like how I said, like how the rain smells, or how like a certain thing looks a certain way through, like, I'll just be like, wait, snapshot this moment in your head. This is a really cool moment. So that's definitely my writing process, just taking all those different lines and kind of putting them together. So I'm like, wait, this works with this and this works with this. So yeah. And my personal creativity, it's just from everyone I know, honestly. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, with regard to where you are, you talk about wanting to get into academia, but where you are today as a young woman, are there groups with which you are connected or affiliated that support your writing efforts, or that you feel are offer opportunities for personal growth in that direction, whether it's school or community or family or even church? Is there a network that has aided in your growth as a poet?
My network has definitely been very recent, because I mostly kept it to myself between me and my friends, like reading it to them. But I will definitely have to say Miss Joy Jones. She discovered me. I'm like, because my school, actually, they sent out an email saying, oh, there's this workshop. So I went to her workshop, and then we kept in touch after that. And I got involved in the arts, music, and poetry program at Genevieve Johnson Baptist Center. And from there, she was like, wow, like, where did you come from? Like, where's this coming from? I was like, I've just been hiding in my room with my little notebook. I have never secretly anonymously posting stuff on Tumblr. She is definitely a big part of me even being able to be here, do this interview with you. She suggested me where I met you for the pen and poetry. So Miss Joy Jones, all the credit.
Well, and she's a great mentor, trust me. She's one who has done some marvelous things and is doing marvelous things, because she herself is still a young woman who is making major inroads, and kudos to Joy Jones. And I encourage folks to reach out to her if you have an interest in that type of poetry and leadership in the literary world. And she's here in the DMV as well. So Kya, with regard to when you talk about those issues that today are splashed across the social media, newspaper, television screen, even what is happening in, on the movie screen. What is it that you feel poetry has to contribute to the messages and the voices that are heard today? What would you feel would be the important message from poets?
To speak with grace and purpose. And with everything going on today, I think people are too quick to say what they want to say without having to really fully take in everybody else. So I think poetry, to quote yourself, speaks from the soul, like it lets your soul speak. So I think that's what poetry has to do with all the issues today. It makes everyone, I love when I hear a poem and it makes you go like it's like, whoa. And it just hit me, you know what I mean? So just hearing everyone's different perspectives. Like if I hear something, I'm like, that was so good. I wish I wrote that. That was so good. So
how many times have we said that?
Yeah. So,
every poet.
Yeah, definitely. So being able to just breathe and take someone's soul in and really understand them.
Okay, now I'm going to shift gears for you because you're relatively young and you may not have thought of this, but I'm going to just put it out there. There are persons younger than yourself. As you said, you came to poetry at what, 11? So if you were to mentor a young poet or a young person who had not yet decided that poetry was their avenue of expression, but what do you feel would be the primary gift that you could share with a young person seeking to find their voice? What does Kya bring to the table? Yeah, see, oftentimes young people don't think about what they can give, but you absolutely have something to give. So just take a moment of reflection on that. And with regard to maybe you can reflect on some specific young persons that you have in an informal sense mentored or helped to find clarity in the path that they're pursuing. So if Kya were to step out and say, I want to offer something to, and it could be that it doesn't, it may not be a young person. We can mentor persons who are at varying stages of life. But Kya, what would that look like for you?
I would say find what feeds you. That sounds strange, but specific young people that I feel like as of this moment, I also play sports. Well, so much on the schedule, but I also play sports. So my sports team, a lot of them are younger and new to the sport. So for example, like one of the things I always said to them was learn how to get that tunnel vision and when you need to do what you need to do. So I would say I always like try to give them advice, as a senior. So I tell them like what I tell younger people as of now, I say, don't, this is only one life you have, and don't do something that you don't want to do just if you don't have to. So like school, you have to do it, obviously. But like if you're playing an instrument and you don't want to do that, then don't do what feeds you. Like poetry for me has been my lifesaver for me. And it just happens to be something that's furthering me in a career. So I always say like, find a way, make a way to pursue what feeds you. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. What is meaningful and nourishing to you, because frankly speaking, time is ticking. Life is short. Even though you're young and everybody thinks the future is, full and bright and all of that, but it is important to have some sense of not necessarily tunnel vision, but focus. Because as you continue in life, there will be so many choices that you can make. And if you continue to bounce from point to point to point, you lose the opportunity to fine tune and to hone that very skill that is most meaningful to you. Well, Kya, I thank you for this interview. You didn't tell us, what is the sport?
Oh, field hockey. I played
Field hockey. Okay,
cross
okay.
and I ride horses.
Oh, okay. So she's an athlete as well as a poet. Okay. Well, Sojourn with Words viewers, I hope you have enjoyed our guest. And this is Kya. Kya Amadi is a young woman who is in her senior year of high school. And what high school is that?
Elizabeth Seton High School.
Elizabeth Seton High School. She's doing great things, both for herself and obviously for other young persons as well. We're now going to hear some poetry by this phenom who is just phenomenal in what it is that the level of excellence that she brings to her craft is beautiful, just as is she. And we're open to hearing a variety of poems now, but we want to make sure that persons who are interested know how to be in touch with Kya. So Kya, can you give us your contact information for our guests to be able to reach out to you if that's an option?
Yes, ma'am. I have a writing Instagram. It's at KYA in caps lock, and it's actually all not in caps lock. That's kind of the irony. And so there's that. And then my email that you could reach me at is kebuwei@gmail.com.
Okay. So thank you so much, Kya. We look forward to hearing some poetry by Kya Amadi. Thank you so much, Kya. I'm going to sit back and just transition to receiving instead of guiding. Thank you for this time.
Okay, so this first poem I wrote when I was having a lot of emotions about George Floyd. So it is called In the Thick of It. I'm tired. Maybe it's because I stayed up all night watching a show, and I guess somewhere in my subconscious, I acknowledged that that's a reasonable answer of exactly why. But tucked right next to it is what I was trying to hide from, escaping by submerging myself in a more palatable media. It was pain and exhaustion and feelings of hopelessness, almost like the distraction was a haphazardly placed Band-Aid and I was submerged but with no air or sense of direction. I've always cared, but it just feels heavier this time, and though change isn't supposed to be comfortable and tragedy should haunt you, I never truly realized the burden that Atlas suffered. The weight of the world is devastatingly crushing. I know I can't fight everyone or win every battle, and we're restless and run ragged, but as I cry for lives lost, I realize there's still so much pain to feel, so much more tired to push through and shouts to be uplifted, so much more to the grit that I've only just begun to have a taste of. And it's ironically empowering despite everything, to have a clear goal to push myself towards. Even with no air, we will continue to find our way up. So as I cry for everyone else and myself, I accept that it won't be the last time that I feel like this, and I reject that this will be the only future that I know.
Okay, wonderful. Narrative prose poetry from Kya Amadi. Thank you, Kya. That was the first. What else do you have for us?
I have this. It's called Love Letter. I like metaphors. They do their job. So when I say that being with them feels like a heavy blanket in a cold room, or that my God is the silence of the still between moments, don't look at me funny and contort your face to emulate the strangeness of it, because her gaze is like warm water and his hands are like a thunderstorm with gray rolling clouds, and my heart feels like a drum beat with each syllable pounding extra loud. I hate that you patronize this reverent assortment of words. Each line I breathe, and with these breaths I shudder. Nothing else could ever make me this anxious in the entirety of my life. The pure vulnerability of it makes my insides flutter. It's like a hazy mist, like an atmospheric change. It feels like a jazz song in a sunny flower field at the same time. I feel it flowing through my soles. Its nest is my chest. It throbs in my palms, and I yell until my throat is hoarse and my breath can't catch the momentum. My voice always shakes, and I can't imagine the day where it won't. I see it everywhere I go, in the conversations I have. I assume I am crazed because you say you don't. This crazy waltz is one I dance alone. It saves me. It's the love of my life, the intake of that shaky breath, the brightest star in the sky. I wear it like a crown upon my head. It's the twitch of my finger while random phrases rattle around my brain. Another syllable for crazed. I feel borderline insane. Like the devotion of a nun and the diligence of a good student. I say this with everything I have, prudence, but with every possible opposite noun to it. It's poetry. I breathe it, feel it, hear it, sniff it, lick it, say it, scream it, taste it, chase it, and be it. It's poetry.
It's poetry. Okay, fabulous, fabulous. Let's see, do we have one that's less than a minute? We want to squeeze in one more. If you have one squeak through. Go ahead.
All right, this one is called Dissipation. I knew when I realized that you looked stunning in every singular second that passed. I knew when talking to you felt like I was walking around naked. I knew when your name had worn a path in my mouth, and I knew when I was with you and it felt like breathing. In time, I also knew when we didn't like the same music anymore, and when remembering grew tiresome and talking felt laborious, when interactions became few and far between. Calling how I felt butterflies didn't do it justice. It wasn't fluttering, it was the strain of air, and they weren't in my chest. They rose from my chest to my throat, so I named them bubbles. And sadly and somewhat disappointingly, bubbles eventually have to pop, and sometimes, most times, we don't have enough breath to blow more.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Kya Amadi, we're so very honored to have you on Sojourn with Words today, right here on CTV, where we present the best, and truly that means Kya Amadi. We're very, very happy that you were able to be with us, and we want to make sure that our guests appreciate that you are a student and has taken time from your schedule to be with us today. Thank you, Kya. We enjoyed having you and look forward to great things. And certainly let us know when that first book of poetry comes out. We want to be getting our copy signed, of course.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, that closes us out right here on Sojourn with Words on CTV. I'm Sistah Joy. And remember, always pick up a pen and keep writing. She scrubbed relentlessly, rubbed in vain, brushed with fervor, tried to eradicate the loss that kept her dreams in darkness. Scrubbed, rubbed, tugged, tried to conceal the corners of her heartbreak, the years of yearning for more dignity, more equality, more opportunity. Surely if she could just scrub till things glowed bright again, remove the dinginess of a messed up life, scrubbing clean, her knees now brown, not just from birth, but from dust and dirt-lined floors, all the chores that required prayer position, but none that closed with amen. She scrubbed, a face now traced with lines, too many to find her way back to beauty, or at least what she naively once thought it to be. Lines grown deep by time that denied that which she most yearned. It never occurred to her that the radiance for which she so desperately reached already dwelt within. So encrusted was her self-reflection that no mirror ever allowed her eyes to see the glow, desperately trying to shine. So she continued to scrub.